There is a common saying that goes, curiosity killed the cat. It is a very useful saying, teaching people not to make poor decisions that could ultimately lead to their demise. Unfortunately, some people allow their curiosities to get the better of them, and it eventually consumes them. Kelly was one of those people. Sunday, October 31st, 2004. It was Halloween, Kelly's favorite time of the year. She thought it would be a good idea to decorate her front door with some cheap decorations to let kids know that she was handing out candy. At 12:35 p.m., she drove to the local dollar store to buy some Halloween candy and decorations. While browsing, she found a shelf containing of old VHS tapes. As she looked through them, her eyes fell open upon an old copy of Disney's 1951 classic, Alice in Wonderland. Wow, I haven't seen this movie in a long time, she said to herself excitedly. Kelly decided to purchase it along with her candy and decorations. When she came back home, it was still too early for trick or treaters to be out. She took some time to prepare her front door. She continued decorating and filled a large pumpkin shaped bowl with candy. By the time she was finished, it was nearly 4 p.m. She checked to see if there were any more decorations to put up. When she looked inside the plastic bag from the dollar store, she saw the Alice in Wonderland VHS box all sitting by itself. Oh, I forgot about this. Maybe I could watch it before the trick or treaters arrive. Kelly had a VCR DVD player in the living room, so she opened up the box to watch the movie. Something was strange about the tape. The movie's logo was on the front, but that's as if someone had tried to scratch it off with a knife. Kelly figured that it must have been a used copy. As she took the movie out of the box, she noticed a strip of masking tape on the front and back of the video with the cassette with the words, "Play Me," written very poorly, as if a child had written on it. That's weird. Maybe someone was trying to be cute at the dollar store, she reassured herself. She closed her curtains, turned on the television, turned all the lights off, and put the tape in the VCR. Kelly was shrouded with darkness, perfect for watching a movie. As the opening title cards were playing, Kelly laid herself down on the couch and was excited to be watching one of her favorite movies from her childhood. The movie started off normally, without nothing out of the ordinary. The picture was a little faded, but it was tolerable for a used copy. For about 10 minutes, the movie played just fine. When it got to the scene showing Alice inside the bottle she drank from, strips of static started appearing on the screen. What's going on? Kelly started to get frustrated. Please don't crap out on me. Suddenly, the entire screen went to static and the movie was gone. Oh, come on! Kelly became angry and got up to see what was wrong with the tape. As she headed over to the television, the picture came back on. Only this time it wasn't Alice in Wonderland. It was an old home video. Kelly was upset but decided not to fast forward on the tape. She was curious to see what was the previous owner could have possibly have recorded over the tape. The picture quality was not very good. The footage looked like it came from a 1970s home movie camera. The video was that of a small group of children gathered around the table with a little girl sitting at the end of it. She had long auburn hair and wore a dress similar to what Alice wore. They were all singing "Happy Birthday" to her, and someone, most likely her mother, brought out a cake with lit candles and set it in front of the girl. As she blew her candles out, everyone started cheering. Kelly thought it was strange for someone to record this girl's birthday over the music or the movie, but she kept watching to see what would happen next. As she made her very way back to the couch, the video jumped to the children chasing each other in a game of tag out in the large field. After about 2 minutes of tag, the video suddenly cut to static. It made Kelly's heart skip a beat. She laughed it off and continued to watch the movie. After a few seconds, Alice in Wonderland was playing again. It started off with Alice left Tweedledum and Tweedledee in the woods. For a few minutes, nothing happened to the movie. When Alice met the talking flowers and listened to them sing, the video cut to static again. As the picture became apparent, it showed some of the children from earlier playing Ring Around the Rosie with the birthday girl in the middle of them. They were all in the same field that day they were playing tag in moments before. The camera filming it was in a high angle, possibly from a 2-story window. Unlike the previous video segment, this one had no sound. The children were constantly spinning around the little girl, holding hands together in a giant ring. After about minutes of silence, Kelly could barely hear the children's voices, whispering simultaneously. This is what she heard. Ring around dear Alice, her heart is filled with malice. Alice, Alice, she soon shall die. Kelly was disturbed by that horrific rhyme. The video suddenly cut off to loud static. Kelly gasped as she held her hand close to her chest. She thought that it would be wise to stop watching the video, but she thought that she just had to know what was on the rest of the tape. As the movie came back on at the scene where Alice met the blue caterpillar, Kelly sat herself up and continued watching. The video continued playing normally until it got to the Mad Hatter's tea party. Before the Mad Hatter and the March Hare could sing A Very Merry Unbirthday, the video jumped to static again. Kelly felt a lump forming in her throat. There was a sound this time, but the image was distorted and hard to distinguish. Kelly could only hear a little girl's voice. Mommy, I'm not lying. There's a monster that hides in my room. I can't sleep because it watches me at night. Please, you have to believe me. She seemed very upset, almost to the point of tears. I'm sick of your lies, her mother said angrily. You're 8 years old. There are no such things as monsters. You should know better. But Mommy... That's it. I've had enough. Her mother screamed at the top of her lungs, and Kelly could hear the girl sobbing softly as the mother stomped her feet. Suddenly the picture shook violently and it became clear. The video was of a little girl sitting on the chair, staring at the floor. She had tears rolling down her face and looked as if she was beaten. Bruises had covered her arm and face. Mommy, what are you doing? At this time, the little girl looked really worried, dreading to know what her mother was about to do. Moments later, her mother walked towards her, her head cut off at the edge of a screen. In her hand was a small knife. Kelly's heart pounded in her chest, but she couldn't take her eyes off the screen. The girl's mother took the knife in one hand, grabbed the little girl's cheeks, and forced her to stick out her tongue. I'm going to scrape off those lies off your tongue. With that, she placed the sharp edge of the knife onto the little girl's mouth and quickly scraped it across her tongue. The girl screamed in agonizing pain. Kelly could only see shivers of the bloody tongue fell onto the floor. She suddenly felt nauseous. She got up and ran to the kitchen sink and vomited. As Kelly washed out of her mouth, the video went to a piercing static, making her scream. She slowly crept to the back of the couch, keeping her eyes glued to the screen. The movie came back to Alice walking away from the tea party, disgruntled with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. However, the bad video segments were Kelly felt that she had to find out who was filming these terrible things happening to the little girl. The movie got to the scene where Alice was getting lost in the Tulgey wood. Again, the screen filled with static. Only lasted a few seconds before cutting to a video of a little girl sitting on the front edge of the bed, crying into her hands. The room she was in was very dark. Everything around her cast in the shadow. For nearly 3 minutes, she just sat there crying. Not once she did look up. Every few seconds, she would walk and stop and say, Nobody loves me. After a while, the door opened off camera, letting out the entire dim room. Slowly, the shadow figure entered and floated towards the girl. She looked at the figure, her eyes shot wide open. She began to plead, No, please! Her cries were abruptly severed by the deafening static. Kelly screamed out loud and covered her eyes. After the static died down, she gained the courage to open her eyes. The movie came back on with Alice going to the Queen of Hearts courtyard. All the bright colors and silly moments of the film could not stir Kelly out of her deep-seated fear. Kelly began to gain hope that the hellish video segments were over, so she could watch the rest of the movie in peace. As the trial scene approached, the picture gradually faded into static. Kelly's heart dropped as she started sobbing. This time the static lasted over 2 minutes. Kelly's heart raced in anticipation of the upcoming video. When the static disappeared, there was nothing. The living room was filled with a deafening silence. Kelly became short out of breath and started hyperventilating. For several seconds, there was a complete silence. Kelly thought the movie was over, but the tracker on the VCR said that the tape was still playing. After a short while, Kelly could hear something. It sounded like children were whispering. She could not make out what they were saying. Kelly panicked when she noticed a dark picture slowly enveloping the screen. It was a photo of the little girl, sitting on the edge of the bed again, secluded in darkness. This time she was not crying. She was staring straight at Kelly through the screen. Her eyes were bloodshot from so much crying, and the look on her face was of pure horror. Her eyes were shouting, "Help me!" The only light in the girl's bedroom seemed to be coming from the glow of Kelly's television. The image was so clear that they could have easily been sitting in the same room. Kelly could hear the little girl crying again. However, she was still glaring through her screen, not watching an inch. As Kelly looked past the little girl's shoulder, she made out what appears to be a faint set of crooked teeth, fixed smile. The teeth appeared to be human. They were elongated and stretched out too wide to be from an actual person's mouth. Voices joined like a maddening chorus. Voices of all kinds could be heard whispering, "Off with her head." Over the next minute, the girl's crying and the voices grew louder and more hysterical. Kelly had to cover her ears. Suddenly, everything felt silent. A deep heart pounded in her uncovered ears. One final deep voice said menacingly, "Off with her head." Static flashed over the image for a fraction of a second. The picture began to move. The little girl's head slowly fell forward, as if she was going to cry again. It dropped lower until it rolled off of her shoulders and onto the floor. Instead, with her head fell off, her blood-curdling scream filled the room as Kelly covered her ears in terror. She screamed as loud as till she could hear the video cut to static one last time as the ending credits of the movie began rolling. She could not even speak. She was traumatized when she stared at the blank screen. By this time, it was around 5:15 p.m. As Kelly slowly started to get up, she kept her eyes on the screen just to make sure nothing else was going to show up on it. Her concentration was broken by the sound of the doorbell ringing. She screamed and shot her head up around to see at the front door. "Just breathe, Kelly. You're all right. Everything's okay. Just relax." Kelly collected herself, turned on the lights, and then headed to the door. "It's just an early trick-or-treater." Before opening the door, something told her to look through the peephole first, and when she did, she was frozen of what she saw. On the doorstep was a little girl with her head down. She was wearing an Alice dress. "Calm down, Kelly. You're just a little freaked out from the movie. It's only a kid in an Alice costume." She grabbed the candy bowl, opened the door, and when she got ready to hand out the candy, she dropped the candy bowl in horror. The little girl had vanished. Kelly trembled terribly as she tried to pick up the candy and put it back all into the bowl and slammed the door behind her. "You have to relax. You are just seeing things." When she put the bowl back down on the kitchen table, the television cut to a loud static. Kelly screamed and turned towards the living room. Tears rolled down her face. Written on the wall all above the television in blood were the words, "Off with your head." Kelly frantically tried to get out the front door. The door was locked. Suddenly she could hear something crawling at the door violently like a bear. She looked through the peephole again. She saw nothing but black. As if a fuse broke, all the lights in her house went out at once. She was submerged into total darkness. She could absolutely see nothing but except at the end of the narrow hallway, there was something near her bedroom door. It was a faint set of garned teeth fixed into a smile. Kelly was paralyzed with fear. Who's there?" The smile slowly floated down towards Kelly. She tried to run away, but found herself unable to move. In a moment, the shadow monster was right at her face. She could smell the horrible stench of rotting flesh on its breath, and it whispered to her, "Off with your head." Later that same night, a girl by the name of Abby Lawrence had just finished trick-or-treating in her fairy costume. She was 10, and her mother let her go by herself with her friends for the first time. She and her mother lived about a few blocks away from Kelly. When she returned home, her mother gave her a big hug and helped her get ready for bed. "Did you have fun trick-or-treating with your friends, Abby?" "Yeah, my bag is full of candy. It'll probably last me until next Halloween," said Abby. "I'm glad you had fun, sweetheart." "Hey, Mom, you've got to see this." Abby ran through her bag of Halloween candy and pulled out a copy of Disney's Alice in Wonderland on VHS. "Where did you get that?" her mother asked. "One of the houses I went to had it in a candy bowl. The bowl was empty, but this movie was in it." She could barely control her excitement. "Can we watch it tonight? Pretty please?"